world, let me tell you something. If somebody is really aware about themselves and about how they come off to other people and they do check-ins and they do heat checks like, hey, how are you feeling? Hey, this is how I, present myself here. This is who I am. If somebody literally knows about themselves and they're telling you about themselves and they're open, like, that is a huge fucking green flag. I'm not saying that person that is going to work out between you and that person, but that person has a huge, jump on the people that don't know shit about self-awareness. Because people that are self-aware, they are more likely to treat you the way you deserve to be treated and would want that same respect in return. Hello, and welcome to Situaseans podcast. I'm your host, Sean Michael Williams, aka Shawnee Do. You can call me Sean, Shawnee, Shawnee Do. Doesn't matter to me. I'm just glad that y'all are here. Welcome back. We are continuing to, roll. I mean, I'm glad that this podcast is starting to reach more people as each time an episode goes out. More and more people are listening. You all are submitting your stories. Like, it means the absolute world to me. Like I said, each time you submit a story, it's another drip of love on my heart. So yeah, just keep on submitting those stories. Keep on dripping that love onto my heart. And again, I'm just so glad that you guys have really been good about just sharing the love of this podcast and telling your friends, families, like anybody that you would think will find value in this podcast. So continue to share this podcast with the group chat. Get everybody involved. One of my favorite podcasts that I listen to, they say the term assemble the group chat. So I'm going to use that here. And I'm going to plug that other podcast for you. It's called You Up Podcast, like the letter U and UP, like UUP, You Up. So it's funny podcast. Is a dating and relationship podcast kind of, but this one focuses more on mental health and dating and relationships. So kind of like, I guess a little bit of a dynamic podcast, if that makes sense. But so anyway, assemble the group chat. Let people know about this podcast and continue to share, this podcast everywhere and submit your stories. Whenever you submit, other people that are listening to this podcast are going to be like, wow, that person's story or that person's question or that person's insight on dating or whatever that they brought onto the podcast, that really resonates with me because I'm going through something similar. So maybe I should share my, question or story. So this is why it's so important. This podcast runs on you. You are the focus of this podcast. Like, this podcast can't run without you. So literally from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for tuning in and sharing this podcast. So today we're going to talk about, big date energy. Yeah, you heard that right. Big date energy. Now, some of you got dirty minds, so get your mind out of the gutter. But I'm just saying, the importance of today's episode is pretty much to kind of get you all kind of, I guess, aware of the importance of, going into like a date with intention and having, positive vibes behind that. Because at the end of the day, whenever we're all going on dates, of course, it's a little bit daunting and a little bit scary at sometimes because it's like, okay, well, we don't know this person. We've been talking and chatting on the apps for, however long, and now we're here. So of course it's like, yeah, you want to make sure you're presenting your best foot forward on these dates. So yeah, again, like the very first date is pretty much a vetting session, if you will. It's a vetting session of compatibility. Like, hey, I'm going on a date with this person. do I click with this person? Do their values and their morals kind of align with, what it is that I'm about? Like, I like these certain things and this person is into these things, like, is that something that I'm cool with, or is this something that's like, okay, maybe that's a deal breaker? So the first date is definitely a vetting session to see, okay, this person has good energy on the apps, obviously, and that's why the two of you agreed to meet in person, right? Like you both had great conversation on the apps or wherever it is you met that person. So, I mean, even if you met that person in real life once before, whatever, and you decide, hey, let's go on an official date to see, if there's something there. So, the first date is a vetting session, and that's kind of where you tell tell each other about about yourself. So, you have to be able to put your best foot forward on that date and come in with positive energy and light. And, again, like I said, going on the first date can be exciting and at the same time nerve-wracking, because it's like, well, I don't know if this person is going to, match the energy that they presented on the dating app or wherever it is that you met that person initially. And so while you're getting ready, you're making sure you look good, you're spending time putting on makeup, or you're doing your facial routines, for whatever it is that you do that you're preparing for the date. Doesn't matter if you're man or woman, or, or identify as anything, like anything different. So whatever it is you're doing, your pre-date preparation, or I guess routines or rituals, you want to make sure that you're bringing your full self into this. And I get it, because a lot of people out there is like, well, it takes me, X amount of time to get ready for a date. I want to make sure that when I get on this date that this shit is fucking worth it. Because if I'm going on this date, I'm spending all this time preparing, and this person isn't really in it, I just wasted my entire time. So, I mean, that's another thing too. Yeah, I definitely get that as well. Most of us are dating and meeting people on these dating apps because it's become the norm to meet people on the dating apps. Before then, a lot of people would just meet at bars or restaurants or out on the town or, grocery stores, like wherever it is people were meeting before then, kind of like our parents' generation. Like a lot of them, like met in real life situations or through friends or family, like someone set them up or whatever. So, in today's environment, the norm is meeting through a dating app. It's almost like now it's kind of funny, because 15-ish, 20 years ago, if you told somebody you met on a dating app, he'd be like, wait, are you crazy? Like, you met somebody online? Like, are you sure like that person is sane? Like, that person could probably kill you. Like, what the fuck? And now it's like, wow, you met that person on a dating app. Pretty cool. And now it's like weird if you did not meet them on a dating app. Like, oh, you met them at a bar? Damn. Like, wow. I'm surprised that shit worked out. So it's kind of funny how, dynamics change. But again, with technology, that's how things happen. So there are so many situations and different circumstances where people meet. But as of now, dating apps is kind of like the main point of where people are, meeting. And, in an oversaturated market, especially on the dating apps, it's like, how are people really finding like those genuine connections? You got to really think about how somebody lays out their profile, how someone is presenting themselves on the apps. Is their texting energy matching in real life? I mean, in a certain way at the same time, like, are they bringing big dick energy to the date, and transferring that into big date energy? So, and that goes for both people, because women can have big dick energy and bring it onto the date. So, I mean, using your like your full authentic, I guess, like thoughts, feelings, everything that you're bringing to the table on these dates, you got to be in it. You have to be in it. You have to be able to make sure that you're connecting on a very honest, open level. Because if you're coming to this date pretending to be somebody you're not, I've said this in episodes before, like if you're trying to come off as somebody that you're not, people are going to find you the fuck out and they going to immediately be like, yeah, I'm good. Like on to the next one. So yeah, you got to really watch how you present yourself and make sure that you're aware of yourself and you're aware of the person that you're on that date with. And so, yeah, the energy that you bring to that date will definitely determine the rest of how that date is going. So if you both are coming into that date and you both are like, yeah, very passionate about how you speak, like it's in your body language, like you're sitting up, right. You're not like slouched in a chair, you're making eye contact instead of just like talking down into the table, just like, oh, this, you're putting all of your energy to that person that you're spending that time with. Because at the end of the day, you both made an effort to be here on this date. So the least you can do for each other and for yourselves is to, put the energy into the date. And again, if it's something that like, you're not feeling on a date, of course, that's absolutely fine. Like, and I'm definitely going to talk about that too in a second. But if you're both putting all this time and you've been chatting on the apps for however long, whether it's like a few days or a few weeks or whatever, and you guys finally met up, yeah. Like if you put all that time in the beginning, why not make the most of it in those moments together? So yeah, you definitely gotta like bring that energy to the date. If you're going into that date and you are definitely, being very open, and I'm not saying you gotta like tell your entire life story on that first date. That could be a lot for somebody to digest, especially if you've had a lot going on in your personal life. What I'm saying is, if you're going into that date and you're treating it as that could potentially be your last first date, meaning like, oh, that person could work out in the end, depending on how, the vibe is between the both of you, then chances are that's going to definitely indicate whether or not that first date could lead to a second date and so on. So if you are very aware, if you are listening to what that other person is saying, and especially when they're talking about themselves, yeah, you begin to see, oh, okay, this is how that person is. This is that person's vibe and energy. This is kind of what makes them them. And if it's something that you fuck with, cool. You let them know like, hey, I really enjoyed our time together. I really enjoyed this date. And if you feel the same, I'd love to see if, we can try to make another date happen. What do you think? And if they're like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's try to like get something on the calendar. Cool. If they're like, hey, thanks so much for coming out. Unfortunately, I don't really see, anything going further from this point, but I really appreciate you coming out and meeting up with me. That's absolutely fine. At least they were honest with you. They told you kind of how they were feeling, and they, gave it. Yeah, you would think that they gave it some thought before they were just like, oh yeah, no, thank you. But yeah, they let you down easy, and they were able to, voice how they thought that the date went. So yeah, again, bringing your full energy to the date and not coming off as desperate, like that'll go a long way. Because let me tell you something, if you're coming off as desperate, Like, oh my God, I need a partner. It's been like, a couple years since the last time we went out. Like I went out with somebody, or it's been like months since I was in bed with somebody. I've been on a dry spell. Please help me in that dry spell. Oh, if you're coming off like that, then absolutely, like that date ain't gonna go nowhere. If anything, that person gonna get the fuck up and they gonna leave right then and there and be like, yeah, no. And on top of that, on the first date, there are a lot of things that you can bring up and things that you probably shouldn't bring up. So if, for example, you have a certain timeline on how long it takes for you to like get to a point of, oh, okay, I want a relationship or whatever, if that is what you're going after, it might not be the best thing to say it on the first date. Like, yeah, just so you know, it takes me about 5 months or 6 months before I can see myself with somebody. Because I'm going to tell you something. That other person that might be like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe that timeline looks good to them too. Maybe they're kind of in the same boat. Or they might be like, what the fuck? Like he's putting like a timer on when he is ready to see me as something, or he or she is ready to see me as something, or they. It's like, wait a minute. Like that's the one thing you don't want to do is like put like a timeline on, okay, on June 31st June 30th is when, I'm going to lock it in, because we've been hanging out since January of like 1st of this year. So yeah, June 30th is like when I'm locking that shit in, and this is when I'm ready for a relationship. If you give people a timelines add pressure, because now you're not gonna come together in a more natural way than how you would have had you not had that timeline. Timelines, especially in the dating world, where it's like things are gonna adjust constantly, especially if both parties are hanging out and seeing other people. So you have to really be mindful about the other person's time and your time. So having a timeline, like, I get it. We all have an idea of when, we start to want to see things progress, but don't make it like a hardcore timeline, especially on date number 1. Like date 1 is just for you to get to know each other and see if there's something that's going to follow that. So yeah, don't discuss how long it takes for you to get into a relationship on date number 1. Also, another touchy topic is trauma. It's okay to be open and talk about the stuff that you've gone through. Is like if the energy and the vibe gets to that, if it gets to that point, don't force it. Like we all talk about trauma and stuff and the stuff that we've gone through. I've talked about trauma on dates. There's been a couple times where I've talked about on the first date, but it is so rare. And the only time that it's come up is because the person I was on a date with had brought it up and had asked, hey, I want to learn more about you and what you've gone through. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess we're here. Well, let me tell you about my past. Yeah. So, again, date 1 is the vetting session, and you don't want to throw a lot at somebody on date 1. You got to ease into it. And that's the whole point of getting to know each other. It's about gracefully getting into, the next step of knowing more about the other person. So if you're not feeling it on that date, that's absolutely fine. You got to be honest with yourself. You got to be honest with the person. If you are feeling, hey, this person is cool, but there's these types of energies that I'm feeling, or they got this, or they got that going on, or they have a kid, and I'm not trying to get involved with somebody with a kid. Well, even then, maybe you should have thought about that before you got on the first date. But at the same time, like, yeah, maybe, you change your mind. People are allowed to change their minds by the time date number 1 happens. But I'm just saying, if there are certain things or certain deal breakers or certain red flags that you've seen in another person, then especially on that first date, then it's okay to be able to reassess and be like, okay, maybe this isn't something for me, because you don't want to put yourself or subject yourself into a relationship or get too deep in with somebody and waste their time, 5-6 months later or however long later, because you feel like, okay, you know what, I've had a lot of thought and now I don't want this, because now the other person's going to feel so shitty, because it's like, damn, I put a lot aside for this person, or I've met this person halfway and now they want to change how they feel. So yeah, if you're not feeling it on that first date, then yeah, listen to what your heart is telling you. If you're not feeling it, that's absolutely fine. But you got to be honest up and upfront with yourself and your date. You got to tell your date, hey, even it doesn't matter how many dates you've gone on at that point. It could be date number 1 or date number 100. Like if you are feeling, hey, this isn't really something that that I see going past this point, then you got to tell your date. You got to tell that other person, hey, this is where I'm at, and I want to be honest with you. And if you're feeling like the same way, cool. If not, I'm happy to talk about it. But this is kind of where I'm at, and I don't see anything happening past this. I don't want to waste your time, but I need to be honest with you because you deserve that. So be open, be transparent, be honest with your date if you're not feeling it at any point in time. Don't settle. Don't put your needs last, because you will regret that in the end, because I've done that. I've put my needs last, especially with the person that I was last in a relationship with. Like that's all I was doing for like a year and some change, a year and a half almost, putting my needs aside because I was just so, like infatuated with that person. And at the same time, this was like during like the height of COVID. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to, like people are barely going out to meet anybody. How am I going to meet somebody like in this COVID environment now, And on top of that, I was like, even before COVID, I was just like, yeah, I was single for like 2.5, years or whatever. And I was just like, man, do I really want to wait and be like, wait another 2-3 years until like the next person come along? Like I was just thinking about how alone almost, how like alone that I would be and how long it would take me to find somebody else. And I was just like, you know what, I guess it's just better to stay, because like I do love this person, but they're hurting me constantly and they're triggering me and they're saying so many damning and fucked up things and doing so many fucked up shit. But I don't want to start all over because we've gotten to a certain point. This relationship has gotten to gotten into like a year and some change, and I don't want to start over. So I put all my values last, and that shit bit me in the ass. And my heart was telling me, my mind was telling me, my soul was telling me, hey, Sean, you need to get up out of this situation. If you don't want this, you don't have to subject yourself to this. You are better than this. Like you are worth more than this. You know your self-worth. She is not recognizing your worth and your value. Why are you still here? Well, I don't want to start over. And that's like, that was a huge, like not the biggest reason, but one of the bigger reasons why I kind of just stayed and just subjected myself to that. So know your value, know your worth. And if it doesn't feel right, and it doesn't matter if you're in a relationship or you're in the dating stages, if it doesn't feel right, then you gotta like leave that situation. So yeah, there are a lot of people that put their needs and their values last, and that's got to stop, because that's what happens in so many different relationships and environments. And this is why there are so many hurt people out there. And that old saying, hurt people, because they're continuing a cycle. They're not leaving. I get it. It's easier said than done. But if you want to have a better life for yourself, and even if you got kids or assets or whatever, you have to do what's best for you and what's best for your kids or the people that are dependent on you. So you got to be kind to yourself and not settle. There are 8 billion people in this world. So there is most definitely somebody out there for you. So if you value yourself and you value everything that you're about and your morals, then you'll know, okay, hey, if this isn't for me, I gotta leave, because you're gonna find that person for you. We all have somebody out there for us. We just have to find that person. And staying in a situation where someone is hurting you isn't gonna get you any closer to finding that person that's for you. You are worth it. You are loved. You are valued. You matter. Your opinions matter. Your life matters. Everything about you is important. And the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with, they will see that in you. They will know that in you. And guess what? They're going to treat you like the king and queens and royalty that you all are. Continue to do good for yourself and continue to listen to yourself. And I promise things are going to work out. Some people out there believe that things happen for a reason. Sometimes I like to believe that. I think sometimes there's something in the universe that's like, fluttering around, letting us know, reminding us that, hey, life is valuable. Life has value and your life is valuable. And so, yeah, be kind to yourself and allow the people that want to help you and that want to love you into your life, because there are so many people out there that don't give a fuck about you, that are against you, that wish you the worst, and that don't bring any value into your life, none whatsoever. So if there are people out there that are putting, in the work and the actions and are bringing value to your life, then yeah, you got to keep those people around. So be kind to yourself, love yourself, forgive yourself. You and your heart and everything about you is important. And the people that are closest to you, the people that love you, the people that care about you, they know that too. And that's why they'll always have your back. So be kind to yourself. Today is a great day to start your own podcast. Whether you're looking for a new marketing channel, have a message you want to share with the world, or you just think it would be fun to have your own talk show, podcasting is an easy, inexpensive, and fun way to expand your reach online. Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Your show can be online and listed in all the major podcast directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more within minutes of finishing your recording. Hey, can I let you in a little secret? So I use Buzzsprout to host Situaseans podcast, and let me tell you, it has been the easiest tool I've ever come across for publishing and running a podcast. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. So come on, join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Follow the link in the show notes, and that'll let Buzzsprout know that we sent you. And guess what? That gets you $20 credit if you sign up for a paid plan, and overall, that helps support our show. Let's create something great together. All right, so we got a listener submission. So we're going to go ahead and kind of unpack that. And this listener submission talks about, attractive levels in dating, as far as, what are green flags or red flags to look out for. And so I want to dive deep into that. And again, I keep saying this in the last few episodes. If you got a name for the listener submission section of this podcast, please DM me or DM the show. I want to have a special, badass name for the listener submission section. So a section of this podcast. So I need your help. DM the podcast and let's get some names out there so that, this podcast, I have a dope ass listener submission session. So if you got ideas, come on and submit them. All right, let's get into the listener submission. All right, so this submission says, what are attractive qualities you look for and or notice when on a date? What are unattractive qualities or what are deal breakers? So this is a really good question. When you're out on a date, you are scoping out the good, the bad, and the ugly that you can see or kind of pick up on that person, when you're out there on that date with them. So, you have to look out for so many different qualities, like as far as like attract, like a lot of us are looking for attraction. Don't get me wrong. So are you attracted to that person? It could be visually or, what's inside. I'm hoping that what you find attractive in that person, you're looking within first. I mean, I get it. We all have types or whatever, but if you're looking inside first, you're going to be better off because what's the purpose of a pretty face if they're treating you like shit? So, that's definitely stuff that you got to look out for. The green flags is like the things that people out there that you're on the date with or that you're meeting up with, the qualities that, make them that are good. And then, if there's any red flags or or things that are like, I don't really necessarily like this about that person. Like maybe the person smokes or maybe that person, maybe that person smokes a lot of, weed or whatever, or cigarettes. So I'm just saying, I'm just giving like a little bit of more of a, I guess, detailed description on smoking because some people do see smoking in general, could be weed, cigarettes, or otherwise as deal breakers. So you just look into whatever it is like that person is presenting themselves as or whatever it is that they're telling you about themselves. So you got to look at the vibe and the energy that, these folks out here are bringing on a date. Are they coming in a date with an openness about them? Are they like, hey, I want to learn more about you. I want to, tell you about the stuff that I like, as well. I want to, tell you about my experience in this city or whatever, like wherever you all are located, or if they're talking about food or if they're talking about adventures or travels, is this person well-versed? Is this person cultured, So, especially if they're if this person that you're on this date with, if they have a certain knowledge about themselves and the world around them, then that's a huge green flag because it means that this person is, they're aware about their surroundings. So that's, again, these are so many different things that you have to look out for when you're out on a date with people because, when someone tells you about themselves, it's best to just believe it. And then, let those actions speak louder than words as time goes on. So also another huge green flag to look out for is, are they genuinely interested in knowing you and getting to know what makes you you? Are they asking questions about you? Are they saying, hey, what do you love most about the work you do? Or are they asking hey, what are some of your interests and hobbies? Are they, or even if they're asking about family, morals and family, connections and stuff like that. Hey, do you have any siblings or do you have family in town or, where'd you grow up? These are questions that people normally do ask on dates because you're just trying to get an understanding of, this person's familial ties and how they, how they see their families and like the world around them. So if they're asking you questions about yourself, the things you do, like the things that interest you most, and again, like that's a huge green flag, because they genuinely want to know what makes you you. Because your family, your work life, the sports, anything that you're interested in, like these different avenues and aspects, these all define you as an individual. So if they're asking you about yourself, that's a good thing, because can't tell you how many times I've gone on dates, or I've heard like friends that have gone on dates where it's like, oh yeah, this guy or this girl or this person had no interest in me, none whatsoever. They just kept taking over the conversation, talking about themselves, talking about them. And it's just like annoying as fuck. And it's like, ooh, people like those, you got to avoid them. Like if that person is really being like that on the very first date, you might want to just like cut it off after that first date to save yourself the time and trouble and dodge a fucking bullet. So if the person is coming off and they're not really trying to make an effort to get to know you, then it's best to just go on about your way, So if they're asking questions about you, or if they're generally gauging these topics about you, and you're seeing that, now you're going to see that the similarities and differences that you guys have. Because if they're asking about you, at some point, I'm sure you're going to turn the question back on them and like, hey, well, how about you? Do you have family like in town, or do you have siblings, or this, that, and the other? Like, where do you do for a living? Now you're connecting. Now you're seeing the similarities and the differences that you both have. So these questions are important to know, because it's like, you don't want to be like 5 or 6 dates in and you have no idea what the fuck this person even does for a living, or who this person like do they even like have any, like values or morals? Like, you know what I mean? So at least get to know the very bare minimum of somebody that you're going on a date with, because it's going to look really shitty on both parties' end if it's like you've gone on several dates and like, absolutely nothing about the other person. And if that's the case, then you may as well just be having a hookup, whatever, and just calling it casual, because it's like you're wasting each other's time by, going out on these dates and not talking about and trying to understand each other. Because if that's the case, what the fuck are you doing on those dates if you're going on all these dates and you have learned nothing about each other? Like, then what were you discussing? Like, were you just talking about, I don't know, like, I guess TV shows? Like, so definitely get to know each other on those dates. Another green flag would have to be awareness. Like your level of self-awareness and self-sufficiency. That is a huge fucking green flag. Let me tell you, world, let me tell you something. If somebody is really aware about themselves and about how they come off to other people, and they do check-ins and they do heat checks, like, hey, how are you feeling? Hey, this is how I, present myself here. This is who I am. If somebody literally knows about themselves and they're telling you about themselves and they're open, like, that is a huge fucking green flag. I'm not saying that person that is going to work out between you and that person, but that person has a huge, jump on the people that don't know shit about self-awareness. Because people that are self-aware, they are more likely to treat you the way you deserve to be treated and would want that same respect in return. Also, if that person is very self-aware, they're going to know how they're coming off to you. Now, here is a little bit of a difference. Somebody can be self-aware and be a narcissist. So hopefully you're not encountering somebody that's self-aware, but they're doing that because they're trying to play some sort of sick mind game and game and get you to like them. And then now they're playing with your mind and pretty much trying to entrap you into dating them. And now they got a hold on you, whatever. So God forbid, knock on wood or something like that. But I'm just saying, from a general standpoint, if someone is very aware and they're presenting themselves like very open and honest and transparent, like that speaks volumes. Like that's a huge like green flag. And like, especially if they're well-intentioned and they're well-informed and they're well versatile and versed about where they are in society and where they are in their own lives, especially if they have drive and motivation. That's another green flag. If you see that they have values and like they stand for something, positive, and they're trying to make an impact in their life and the people's lives around them, that's another green flag, because this lets you know that they care and they are trying to do the best, and they're trying to build the best life that they can for themselves and, again, the people that's around them. So self-awareness and self-sufficiency, that is so attractive. Someone is self-sufficient. They're not depending on somebody else to take care of them. They're like, okay, hey, this is where I'm at in the world. I want to provide for myself and, of course, share a life with somebody. That's huge. Like, because there are so many people out here that are just like adults, but depending on other people to pretty much live their lives. Oh, don't get me wrong. There are people that have certain situations where it's like, okay, maybe they're living with parents or whatever. I get that. It's fucking expensive to like live on your own these days. It's like, I think I read somewhere you got to be making at least like $60,000 just to be able to like have the bare minimum of living by yourself, depending on where you live at and like, as far as the US goes. But anyway, so yeah, living alone isn't fucking cheap. So I understand if there, like people that do live at home, like, yeah, you're saving up or you're trying to like, make sure that you have what you need before you go back out and, get your own situation. But I'm talking about people that are like literally like depending on others and doing nothing for themselves. Like, oh, I want this person to like go out and make all the money while I sit at home and do nothing, or I don't want to do anything at all, or I have no drive, I have no motivation. Like, if you encounter somebody like that, that's a huge red flag. Don't even like interact, because you're gonna end up just being a caretaker for that person. If they have no drive, or if they don't want to make plans, if they don't want to do anything, they just want to just sit there on the fucking couch and just watch TV or play video games and not do shit. You don't need that in your life. Like, you need somebody that's going to meet you halfway and be on the same page in their lives where you are in your life. Because here's the thing. If you got somebody who's like, who's like goal oriented, they're they're ambitious, they're driven, they got all these things going on for them. And you got this person that's like, they don't even know what they even want in life. It is going to be damn near impossible for these two parties to like come together and make something work. Like, because it's like this person's like the person that has their shit together are going to have to like lower their expectations and lower their needs and wants in order to like match and click with the other person that does nothing for themselves. So if you're getting with somebody, yeah, you want to make sure that you guys are somewhere on the same spectrum of what it is that you want in life. So that's another thing to like look out for. If someone is showing that, they're putting in the work on themselves, they know that they have certain things going on in their life, but they're making the best of their situation. That's another thing that's like, a huge indicator of self-awareness. Like, that's like, okay, they are doing the work. They have a proactive approach instead of a reactive approach. Like, if shit goes wrong or shit hits the fan, they're not like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Like, they're like, hey, okay, this happened. This was unexpected, but you know what? I'm going to find a workaround. I'm going to do something to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Like, that's a that's a proactive approach instead of like a reactive, like, oh my God, this is happening, I don't know what to do. Like, so if somebody is, presenting these positive qualities of like, they know what they want, or they know how to maneuver around non-ideal situations, that's another like green flag. That's another thing that you want to look out for. So definitely look out for these positive signs that you are seeing, because let's say you've only gone out on dates with people that are just trash. I get that. Like, we've all dated people that just were not ideal for us. So that's totally understandable. But if you see somebody like a needle in the haystack, like the haystack being like the trash people that you've gone on dates with, and you see this needle of a person that's just on point, they know what they want in their lives, they're bringing positive value to their lives, and they're bringing positive value to your life, you should really hold on to that. You should really hold on to that person, or at least consider that person as, something more, someone that could be there for you in your life long term, and you be there for them in their life long term. So you have to really open your heart, open your mind, and let in the people that want the best for you and the people that want to bring positive, energy and aura into your life, because you deserve it and you fucking matter. Again, I just really want to thank the listener for submitting that question. These are all great questions that you all are submitting. So keep on bringing those stories, those questions, everything that you want to unpack on this show. Come on, submit. There are 3 ways that you can submit your stories and your questions or the situations that you're going through. Like, you can submit whatever. Like there are no set parameters on what you can share on this podcast. I want to hear from you. You matter, and I want to make sure that your voice, your opinions, your thoughts are heard. So you can submit your material. You can submit your stories and questions and anything else that you have in mind. You can submit it to. You go to situaseanspodcast.com/submit, situaseanspodcast.com/submit, or you can email us situaseanspod@gmail.com, situaseanspod@gmail.com, or you can call the hotline and leave a voicemail. And the hotline number is 312-586-2664. And whenever you do that, you just, again, let it ring to voicemail, and then, just leave a voice message, and then we'll play it live on the show. So you got 3 ways that you can submit your material. Follow us on social media. And to those of you that have subscribed to the Patreon private community, you know who you are. Thank you so much. I want more of you to join the private community. There's a lot of stuff in that private Patreon community that nobody else has access to. And if you want all the goods, if you want the screenshots, if you want me to do the live streams and the bonus episodes and, like the giveaways and stuff, like, join the Patreon community. I'm doing giveaways. Like I'm not just saying that shit and not fucking meaning it. Like there's so much in that private Patreon community, and I want to see your lovely faces there. So join the Patreon community, patreon.com/Situaseans podcast. I will see you on the inside. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I will see you guys back here in a couple of weeks. Woo!